I remember thinking that he spoke funny. Prince Charles is reunited with Australian sisters whose farm he stayed on when he was 17. As they reveal, he helped with milking and they taught him to dive. Four sisters who used to spend their weekends with the Prince of Wales when he was 17 have been reunited with the heir to the throne after more than half a century. Charles stayed at their family's dairy farm during his time at college in Australia. And on Friday, the women came face to face with the heir again after 52 years. Charles could not hide his surprise as he was greeted by Jane Tozer, Amanda Boxshall, Penny Jenner and Lisa Tozer during his trip to Bundaberg. As they clutched a photo of them with the prince, taken on the day they were last together, the sisters were given a warm reception by the now 69-year-old Charles. And they wasted no time in telling him of all of their memories from when he used to stay with them at Devon Farm, Lilydale, while he was at Timbertop College in Victoria. "I remember you used to follow my dad around asking him questions and I remember you stirring the milk," said Jane, as Charles smiled and laughed. They then presented him with a copy of the photograph, taken in 1966, which they had all signed the back of. Afterwards, Jane, 62, said, "He said he was wrapped but we still had the photo. It was really lovely to see him again." Jane, the oldest of the siblings, was 10 when Charles would visit. Amanda was 6, Penny was 4 and Lisa was just 3. Jane said, "I remember him being very curious about the farm. I remember him coming tadpoling and swimming. I taught him how to duck dive. At that age we didn't really think of him as royalty." Lisa, 54, added, "All I really remember was thinking that he spoke funny. We all had to get changed out of our farm clothes and put on our Sunday best when he came." The sisters spent several minutes chatting to Charles, before recreating their 1966 photo. The prince had been on a tour of the Bundaberg distillery as part of his 7-day trip in Australia. The 69-year-old spent a couple of hours on Friday in the central Queensland city, which he last visited in 1994. He took a particular interest in a section of the famous distillery museum where a commemorative high-water bottle of Bundaberg rum is displayed. He was taken through a tasting in Barrel House, and took a slug of one of 5 options presented to him. Declaring he could detect fruit-cake overtones, the prince then went a step further and created his own version of Queensland's favorite tipple, blending 4 beakers of rum. "It reminded him of chemistry class," he joked, before successfully mixing a brew which will be taken home to England. Prince Charles, who was rocking a pair of black sunglasses, delivered a speech to the wonderful people of Bundaberg for their strength in the face recent natural disasters. "The Australian spirit and character is such that you are unbelievably resilient and somehow you've managed, regardless of what happened," he told locals, referring to recent floods, after he toured the Bundaberg rum distillery on Friday. "That is one of the great characteristics I've always admired about Australians, ever since I first came here 52 years ago." The speech was unexpected, and was warmly received by the more than 1,000 people who had gathered for a community barbecue outside the distillery on Friday, despite gusty winds and overcast skies. "It's taken me, I'm afraid, all these years to come back for another tot and I'm thrilled that this distillery is proving to be the one that produces some of the most famous and special of all rums around the world," he said. Discussing the extreme weather events, Prince Charles delivered a summary of the floods which have struck the town numerous times, most recently in 2013. "The problem is they are growing in intensity," he said to Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk. He charmed the crowd which had lined up 6 deep behind security fences to catch a glimpse. Pat Allison and husband Jim were among the hundreds of Bundaberg residents who turned out under grey skies to meet the prince. Mr. Allison said the royals represented one of the world's most enduring institutions. "They talk to senior politicians, world leaders and kids and always seem to conduct themselves well." He is flying solo on Friday, the 3rd day of his visit to Queensland, with his wife Camilla having her own engagements in Brisbane. He is attending an environment roundtable on Lady Elliot Island with members of the Irwin family and others, before returning to Brisbane on Friday night for a reception at Government House. Prince Charles came to Australia to open the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games on Wednesday night.